Welcome to today's Chats with Chad. We're going to do a brief thing today. I want to start a little bit of a series where I talk a little bit about first-time authors. Having finished my first book in February, submitted it, I went through a lot of trial and errors and things that I learned from the process and things that I struggled with, and things that hopefully I can grow from, but also that I can share with you guys as an audience if you are a first-time writer or you're thinking about writing, or maybe you've been writing for a while and you've just been struggling with some things. So today we're going to talk a little bit about what I thought I was really good at the beginning of this whole thing, editing. It turns out I'm not. So I put my first book up, a little bit of background on this. I put my first fiction book up in February. I'd gone through, I had edited, I had used spell check, I used all the things that I thought you're supposed to use as an editor. Double checked some things, kind of went back, read through it, really from the idea of how do I make the story fit better, and I did some real revising of the story. Submitted the book, put it out there, and then first time I really look at it in print or when I saw it on Kindle, I'm immediately struck by, wow, I missed a whole bunch of stuff. And so it really kind of made me go back and look at it again. Now, the nice thing about doing publishing, independent publishing by going through Amazon Kindle Direct, is that I can fix it as I go along. So if you got the Kindle version and you're reading it and all of a sudden, hey, wait, this looks a little bit different, it's because I've changed it. You know, I've gone through and I've added, I've fixed spellings here, or there's double spacing, or the indentions were off and that kind of thing. So I did that kind of thing because honestly, I really wanted to fix that. But then as I started working on book 2 of the series, and I began to think, I really want this to look professional. I really want this to look good. So I started looking into getting a professional editor. And guys, that's the thing for me. If you're like me, if you're an indie publisher and you are doing this on your own, and you start trying to get prices on editing, it can be really discouraging. So I went through a service called Reedsy to try to get some bids to figure out what it was. And the very first bid I got was looking at close to $1,200 to edit my book. The next bid that came in was, wow, I'm going to cut you a deal. Here's $600. And that, in the grand scheme of things, is not a tremendous amount of money. But it's spending $600 on the book before I know I'm going to make any money off of it. I had to look really long and hard at, like, what's the most cost-effective way? Is it better for me to spend $600 on an editor that I'm going to make $150 on the book when I sell it, which is kind of where I was at that point on book 1. So I really kind of started thinking about, like, is this really the right way to go? So I backed off on the professional editing, and I found what has been an amazing tool. And I highly recommend this tool for anybody who is self-publishing and low on the fundage. Those are supposed to be hands, but they disappeared in the light. There you go. Low on the fundage. So what I highly recommend doing is finding an editing software. And I chose Grammarly. I originally did the 1 month, which was the cheaper version, is about $30 or so. But I very quickly decided that it was worth it to go ahead and invest in the year-long subscription to Grammarly, especially if you're planning on writing for a long period of time. Now, the reason why I suggest this is Grammarly is going to catch spelling errors that your Microsoft Word spell check is not going to catch. It's also going to catch my biggest problem, like what I found when I'm going through and editing with Grammarly, is I really use a lot of hyphenated terms, and I don't ever put hyphens in. So Grammarly will catch that, and it will fix those things. It'll also catch where maybe you're writing some dialogue, or you're writing sort of an internal monologue. It'll catch if you use the character's name once at the beginning, but then you go into he or she or they throughout the course, and you use that term a lot. So Grammarly is really good at catching those kind of things and saying, hey, you're really using this word a lot. You might want to think of something else. It does pick up on some things where you can set different styles. So you can write if you're writing technically, like let's say you're writing a nonfiction book and you're doing a very technical explanation of something, you can set it to check for that. So it'll look at your verbiage, it'll look at the way that you're writing it. It will tell you, hey, you're really writing it to a novice audience and not an experienced audience. Conversely, you can say I'm writing it to a general audience with very basic reading. And what that'll do is that'll eliminate a lot of the technical stuff. It also kind of gets out of the way of your character speak type stuff. So like if you have characters who speak sort of not properly, which, if we're writing real people, that's probably what we're writing. And it really won't get in the way of that. It won't pick up on that too much. There are still sometimes I think Grammarly is an excellent tool. It is still essentially a robot that's going through and reading based on algorithms and all those different kind of things. So it's going to occasionally miss some of the idiosyncrasies that you yourself are putting in there. So sometimes it'll try to tell you, well, a character would, that character shouldn't say that. Don't use this word here. That's not proper. Well, obviously if your character is speaking improperly, that's the case. So you want to watch out for that. It still pays to go back and edit verbatim, like you go back and edit your own sort of style of things. Grammarly was a huge help on that end of things, and I think it made a big difference when it came time for me to put the book out there and publish it. So Red Hen Rising, the new book, completely Grammarly edited. I've actually gone back with Grammarly and re-edited book 1. So I just want to really quickly apologize to everybody who got an early copy. There are tons and tons of formatting errors and some spelling errors and no hyphens whatsoever in book 1 when there really should have been. So the most recent version of the book that's out now on Amazon, is fully Grammarly fixed, and it really helps with that too. But one other thing on editing, I think that doesn't involve tools, it just involves using your head. And that's what was really beneficial for me, was to sit back down with all of the books that I've written so far. And as I'm going through it, as I'm reading it after my first draft is done, is to not read it as the writer, but to read it as a reader. Is this something? That's the question that's in my head every time I'm rewriting that book. Is this something that I want to read? If I pick this book up off the shelf and I popped open a certain page, would the way it was written appeal to me as a reader? And ultimately, guys, yes, we are writing for an audience out there, but we don't know what that audience is. We can have a general idea that we're writing for young adults, or we're writing for horror fans, or we're writing for espionage thriller fans, or whatever it is that we write for. But the truth is that we're writing for the version of that audience that exists inside of our head. And so chances are, if we're writing it, we've read that kind of stuff and we like it. So that's what I do. Is my biggest takeaway. I have 2 big takeaways when it comes to editing. If you can get an expensive professional editor, if you have the excess funds, go for it. Do your thing. But if not, I highly recommend a tool like Grammarly. I want to say I can't remember exactly. It's been a while since I ordered it. It's around $120 to $140, I think, a year. I may have gotten it on a deal at that time. But it's worth the money. I would rather spend that money there and then save the rest of that $600 that I would have spent on a professional editor at this point in my career to put it towards advertising, to get the names out there. And we're actually going to talk some more about advertising in another meeting, another video series, Chats with Chad. That'll be coming up here pretty soon. And I just kind of wanted to talk through that. But my second takeaway is that when you're editing, when you're revising your book, read it like a reader. At least one of your run-throughs, make sure that you're setting aside the writer hat for a second and just read it as a reader. Is it something you would enjoy? Is it something you'd want to hear? So that was Chats with Chad number 2, talking a little bit about the editing process. Come back next time. We're going to be talking about advertising and what I found to be effective and not effective, and maybe even drop a couple of sites that have been really, really beneficial for me in getting my book in the hands of people. So thank you guys for joining us today. Hope you have a great day. Real quick, totally forgot to mention in the midst of this that if you want to check out down there in the profile stuff, I'm going to have several different links. So I'm going to have a link to Grammarly. So if you wanted to check that out and find out a way to download, that'll be down there. Also, going to, as usual, have the links to my Amazon page, to my website, and also I'm going to throw in there a link to Reedsy, which, even though I didn't end up using their services for the editing thing, it's a great tool for me as a writer. I've taken tons of courses from them and really enjoy what they have to say. So feel free to check out those links down below. And as always, subscribe and follow to see more Chats with Chad.